As an indie filmmaker, you're either going to spend money or you're going to spend time. And I've heard this story now as we did our festival circuit with Alien Country, the same story from other people. They're like, yeah, I had like 400 visual effects shots and it was me in a room for a year. And I'm like, hi, I'm Boston.
Yeah.
You're my best friend.
I know all about that.
I'm glad to meet you. And there's people doing that right now.
Boston McConnaughey, welcome to A Filmmaker's Journey.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time to be here. I appreciate you. Met you through Rachel.
Yeah.
How do you kind of know Rachel? I know that
we met Rachel Brooks Smith on through a film that we made
Yeah.
called Alien Country, and she was introduced to us to a mutual friend, and yeah, like it was at first just sort of, oh, cool, you're an actress. My wife is an actress as well. We're directors. Let's do this project maybe, and then we're like the best of friends.
Yeah.
We hang out all the time, and her and her husband Emilio have been a huge support system throughout my life. So
Yeah,
since we met.
she's a gem. She's one of the best people, and you and Rennie were the first people. She's like, after this podcast, she's like, you got to get Boston and Rennie on, and she still would DM us over and over, and finally we got you in here.
If I wouldn't have friends if it wasn't for Rachel, so there you go.
Same. But then we've got Rennie over here watching, so it's good to have you guys in the studio. I just want to start out with an introduction. Who is Boston, and what are you currently doing in the filmmaking life?
Yeah, I'm Boston McConnaughey, right? I'm a film director, so I started out kind of with my career in more documentary, and found a lot of editing, and I did editing for a solid 10 to 15 years.
Nice.
But all along the way, I really wanted to be a director, and I think that what I hear a lot from people is sometimes that's hard to say out loud to people because there's generally an eye roll. It's like, well, okay, look.
Yeah, everyone wants to be a director.
Well, yeah, exactly. Look, but it's really hard and there's not a lot of slots. And it's like, well, that might be true in some regards, but it's total BS. So yeah, I launched kind of my, what I would call directing career on YouTube with a bunch of really hilariously cheesy, but also fun shorts that were any kind of sci-fi fantasy game mashup, big IP mashup type stuff. But that kind of taught me, I made a million mistakes and made silly videos, and then eventually was like, well, I think I actually know who I am and what I want to say now. And so now what my career is, writing feature-length scripts or TV shows and pitching and getting them going.
That's so cool. And when you say you want to be a director, a lot of people say that, but then the most interesting thing is that it's not like you can just say, I'm a director, and then people are going to call you, right? That's that's not that people think you do that, but it's like, that's typically how a job or a position goes. You've got to kind of create your own scripts, your own videos, and then you bring the people in and pitch your vision, right? Because until people trust it, you're not a director.
Absolutely. I think I was just at Film Quest, which is an incredible film festival run by Jonathan Martin here in Utah. And there was a panel where they were talking to a number of distributors. One of the guys, his name's David Wardle. So he works at Saban for years, but a guy raised his hand and is like, so I want to be a writer. And David was like, okay, cool. Well, let me clarify this for you. Do you want to write your own projects or do you want to write and create someone else's dream?
Yeah.
Because if you want to be a writer, you get to know people and you write their dream projects.
Yep.
It's like, if you want to write your own projects, you're a producer. And so I think the same with director. If you want to be a director, especially in the independent market, it's like, oh, I want to make my own movies. It's like, you're a producer, because the word producer is literally synonymous with maker.
Right.
If you're a filmmaker, you're a film producer. So I think that's sort of like the ultimate advice that I had to reevaluate and learn over and over again.
Yeah.
It's like, nobody's going to hand you, with the exception of Damien Chazelle, who got handed Hollywood stars in college, but also, no one's going to just hand you opportunity. You go out and make it.
Yeah, and like you said, there's some people that get those things, and it's all about your network and who you know, and someone's like, this is the perfect person, let's give them an opportunity. But that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's interesting to me is that you have been an editor for 15 years.
Yeah.
And still editing?
I edit my own, I edit every day.
Cool.
I'm editing my own content or whatever it needs to be. Yeah.
And the best editors make the best directors.
So they say.
That's where it's at.
This is a fact that my neighbor, who's not even really a cinephile, loves to remind me every Oscar season, is that, so if you want to sound smart at the Oscar party, what you need to do is watch what film wins best editing, because for the last 40 plus years, that same film has won best picture.
Yeah.
And I was like,
interesting.
Oh. So so she's like, oh yeah, who's going to win best picture? I could tell you.
Yeah.
All you have to know is who won best editing.
Yeah.
So,
That's cool. And that's the same way I got started, was editing, and then now I'm directing, and it's like, it's so hand in hand, especially if you're editing your own projects. So what are you working on anything currently at this time that you want to talk about that is either a passion project or work?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we're up to. I think one of the biggest things that my wife and I have been really cooking for a long time is our indie film school.
Yeah.
And this is basically an online learning academy for anyone who really wants to focus on narrative filmmaking, people who are not necessarily just interested in content or YouTube videos or whatever it needs to be, but who really want to lean into, I want to write movies, I want to create cinema. And so we started that really in 2018, and we had the crazy ambitious vision of like, all right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a feature film, and while we're making that feature film, we will publish content for our school, and both of those are full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Making the film took up about 3.5, 4 years, and while that time, while we were making it, we absolutely like vlogged and captured all this footage. But it wasn't until the film's been out a little over a year now that we've been able to actually focus on, okay, what are all the things we've learned, and can we help our students really engage and create their own short films or features? And so Indie Film School is our big passion project right now to kind of fill this gap in the market of how do you learn to make original narrative films.
Yeah. What I love about your content that I've been seeing is just you're obviously teaching. You guys are creatives, but you're also teaching so much about the business side of it, which is like so crucial when you're making your own film.
Yeah.
Investors, the crew, the bottom line, like being profitable, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think the thing that's like really hard for a lot of indies is to say like, well, I would love to make this, but I can't find the money. And that I've talked on podcasts or groups or just going on Reddit. It's the number one concern is like, how do I get the money together to pay for what is ultimately one of the most expensive art forms?
Yeah.
And I think that it's actually easier than a lot of people think. I think for a long time, and this is what I've been talking about recently, I looked at crowdfunding especially as this like, charity case. Like,
Totally.
oh no,
GoFundMe.
I really want to be an artist, so please pay for it. But then the shift started to happen when I did a couple crowdfunding campaigns for like my latest feature. The people who came to the table, they just wanted to be part, and they're like, look, I'm never going to make a movie, but I'd love to be part of the process. And it made me realize that everyone who's crowdfunding a project, they are ultimately selling a product to a consumer.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, you haven't made the product yet in some cases, but people just want to buy the experience. They want to buy the product. And so shifting from that mentality of this isn't charity, this is you as a business owner finding your clients directly, finding your customers directly. And so, I mean, like that's just one example of like a lot of the things that I've heard so many people in the industry just like kind of talk negatively or, throw shade on like this idea of, oh, if you're crowdfunding, you're not a real filmmaker or something like that. And I think that mentality is completely shifted.
Yeah. It's so intimidating to deal with other people's money. I have to imagine. Have you done any funding that's not through a crowdfunding type?
Yeah, I mean, the vast
website?
majority, interestingly enough, like Rennie and I were starting to calculate how much money we've raised for our own indie films.
Yeah.
That's short films and features. And last year, during a crowdfunding campaign, we crossed over having raised $1 million for our own original films. We realized, but the vast majority of that was private equity or sponsorships.
Cool.
So it's like this company they wanted to have a native ad, and so we pitched them a short film idea. We did a really cool one with a bear. And that was but it was ultimately for a Nokia camera, right? And so we put this all together, but we had like $25,000 to go out and make a short film, paid for by Nokia. And I think that there's a lot of avenues that seem daunting, but what I've also found is, the real ultimate thing everyone has to learn is it's not about who has money that I can take, but who has a need for the products I can give.
Yeah. And just wanted to be a part of something cool.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think it's so fun. And I think there's going to be a ton of people that are going to be way interested in learning about how to go about, getting a film started. Because like I said, it's intimidating to deal with other people's money. How do you even go about that? And I think it sounds like obviously you've got a lot of experience. I think people are going to be excited to learn more about that. And I'm super stoked to dive into it. I want to dial it back to the beginning for you. Like, when did you decide to be in this crazy world?
So, I grew up family of four, And my brother's pretty smart. My younger brother's super smart. My sister's super cool and smart. I struggled in school nonstop, and I didn't really understand until literally after I graduated college. I have a visual processing disorder. So it's called Irlen syndrome, which is similar to dyslexia. And I may have mild dyslexia, but it literally is just how my brain processes specifically contrast and text.
Yeah.
Reading was just a nightmare.
Huh.
And so all throughout my educational system, or throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, it was like I could read, but it just required so much more work than the average person for my brain to just focus on the page. And I start seeing my vision would blur, or I'd lose my, and it would constantly happen. And so I'm sitting down with this person who diagnoses this disorder, and she was like, "Did you ever do this thing?" And so if you're listening, did you ever do this thing where when you were reading a paragraph, a person, you would count how many seats were in front of you and say, "Okay, this is my paragraph," and memorize the paragraph.
That was me, 100%.
Right, and some of it might just be, "Oh, I was just nervous. I wanted to make it sure," but I literally had to memorize the thing, and I would read it because if I didn't, like, I would be in my own head and I'd be stumbling, and like even in high school, and it was so embarrassing. And I internalized a lot of that as this, "You're dumb."
Yeah.
And it turns out like I learned I'm not dumb, which was really good to find out later in life, which came from meeting stupid people, but also, realizing that I did have creativity and unique things and good ideas.
Yeah.
But ultimately, 11 years old, in the middle of this, I'm not very intelligent. I'm not doing well in school.
Those are the most vulnerable years, man.
Right.
Yeah.
My family got a camera.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I can finally communicate for the first time what's going on inside my head, and I can do it with my friends. I can capture, and it was such a free way of expressing myself. I remember the first time I actually shot film with like a 110 little, flash camera. It was like I can capture a moment, and I can bring it back to life. And doing that more interactively, film became this way to just communicate. And so I did an Eagle Scout project in school, and it was literally doing like a documentary about my local library.
Very cool.
And so all of that was just a way of being able to do what I couldn't do very well, which was read and write in a much more, in a faster, but also a more kinesthetic way for my own learning skill.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it's like, did you get this thought as you were like, I can't read very well, I love cameras? Was it like, this is the way? Or was it just more like, this is fun? Obviously, it's super young to decide this is my career, but I'm just kind of curious as your thought process as you started to figure that out.
Yeah, I think there was no stop. And here's the embarrassing but also awesome part. I was 11 years old, and I watched Back to the Future, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all these like things people always talk about, but Lord of the Rings came out when I was in high school. And I just saw how it was made to a certain degree and the films themselves. And I had a camera, and I was like, oh, great, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
So it started with just me in my, in the woods by my house with friends in costumes, pretending to be in a fantasy movie, or I literally made a Star Wars fan film where inside of my high school in our like production space, a green screen, because I watched the prequels and was like, oh, all we need is a green screen and we can make Star Wars.
Of course.
But we went, and fast forward a couple decades later, and at least my ambitions haven't changed, but my capacity maybe to make better versions of those things has.
Yeah, it's so cool. And then as you were starting to create these things, and you, I have to imagine this like excitement started to happen. I've got a 9-year-old boy right now that like I'm not brainwashing him into get into film, but he just sees what I'm doing and loves this. He's just always seen my videos like, what the heck? How did you do that? And then he's constantly asking for our phones, and I just love to watch this little boy create stories, and he's editing them on Instagram and all this stuff. When you're that young, talk to me about that like excitement maybe, and maybe what was speaking to you as you were creating. Was it the film? Was it the actual directing, coming up with stories?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece for me was, I had an idea, and usually it was looking at what could we actually make? Because again, it was always, I want to make Star Wars. I want to make, Lord of the Rings, and what do I actually have? And I started in high school, like finding people who did like Renaissance fairs and being like, hey, can I borrow your costume for the weekend?
Nice.
But the process of coming up with an idea, and I wrote scripts, but and I didn't even know screenplay format or anything, but I just kind of like pieced it all together. I think the exploration of finding what I can do and then turning that into a final product that I could share with my friends. Because I think the process of making it was just as engaging as the final result.
Yeah.
So for me, I think just the process of learning and attempting was fun. It was like, what are we going to do if we're going to hang out? I don't want to play video games. I want to make something with my friends. And that was just a unique thing that I feel like I had. Plus, I was just bad at video games. Otherwise, if I was good at video games, I probably would have never been a filmmaker.
That's funny. Because that's where you're going to get your fix. Do you have like a memory of being young and creating a certain film that stands out to you and like maybe a story behind it?
Ooh.
Oh, I'm excited.
Should I tell like some stupid ones?
100%.
Oh my gosh. I think this came up
The whole point of this is just to like, I want people to learn from like where you started and how you adapt. And like you grew obviously and got better.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a great example of, learning how to just absolutely rip off other people's ideas. I wanted to make a Star Wars fan film. This was it. I was like, okay, so I wrote a script out, and it was like this noir detective story that takes place on Coruscant, which is, of course, the city planet, right? And so I gathered my friends in the cafeteria, and I like did a table read, and I was like, okay, this is the script. You're gonna play this character, and I was like, and we read this during lunch. I'm sure it was like 7 or 8 pages or something, right? And I was so excited because I was like, I was gonna get all of my friends in this project. And we read it out loud, and at the end, everyone like clapped, and I was like, "Yeah, sweet." I was like, "So, do you guys want to make this weekend?" And everyone like just kind of started eating.
He's serious.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." Except for my friend Ryan.
Cool.
So Ryan and I that weekend like got our green screen out, and we started making this thing, and it fell apart. I could not make this. I could not make this film. It was way too big, way too ambitious. And so what I ended up doing was the next weekend gathering a bunch of friends. And we basically took this Kids in the Hall sketch, which is the Canadian like sketch comedy group that was on Comedy Central back in the day.
Yeah.
And they did a parody of, I mean, it didn't really make any sense, but it was Canadian comedy, and I thought it was hilarious. They took the song Doe a Deer. It's from The Sound of Music. I don't know what the actual song's called.
I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, that one. So she's teaching them how to sing, but they do it in this city with all these people. So I literally took my Star Wars costumes that I had, Admiral Akbar and all this, and we just did the Kids in the Hall sketch on green screen.
Nice.
And I put it all together, and it was basically the Kids in the Hall sketch, but with Star Wars characters on Coruscant. And I made like CG backgrounds. Like this was insane. Made no sense. Probably in stolen 3D programs that I had because I was a high school kid who had money.
And at that time, the software wasn't quite as easy as a click of a button nowadays.
Wasn't great. It looks terrible. The audio quality is terrible. I don't know how. Anyway, if I can find it, I'll send it to you. But yeah, and then I submitted it to the Star Wars Fan Film Awards.
No way.
And was rejected.
I mean, sadly, I'm not surprised. Or I am surprised.
Right. Well, I mean, okay. So, and as a kid, I literally and I sent the guy an email back, and I was like, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like
this is bullshit.
But I didn't realize, you used a copywritten song. You can't be accepted because there's literally, you don't understand.
That's so funny. You went so hard at it.
I'm a 16-year-old kid, and I'm just like, I don't know copyright.
Yeah.
Like the Kids in the Hall did it. Why can't I use it? This must be okay to use. And I'm like not understanding anything.
Yeah.
But so it was ambition, and it was crazy, and I made it, and I think I just learned so much in that process.
Yeah.
And realized that I do have capacity. I don't know if anything happened with that film. I maybe won again, I think our public library had a film contest, and I may have won best effects or something.
Heck yeah. Dude, that's so cool. I love to hear stories of people that are just so ambitious in an idea that they just push it through all the way to the end. At that point, are you in high school?
Yeah, I was probably a junior or senior. Probably wasn't senior year. It was probably a junior year in high school. Yeah.
What were you shooting on and editing on?
Yeah, so at this time, we're doing mini DV. Yeah. I had a Canon GL1 maybe. I think it was my dad. For some reason, he had it at his work, and they were like, okay, yeah. And then I think I honestly, my dad's company probably used it for 2 or 3 things, and I used that thing. I beat that thing to crap.
Yeah.
GL1 Canon, and then...
To capture that footage.
Yeah.
Love those days.
And then I captured it, logged it. I was on whatever, it probably wasn't even Final Cut at that point. It was some kind of simple nonlinear editing program.
Yeah.
It may have been PC. I probably on a PC at the time. And yeah, I mean, it was old school. I did some other, like the first editing I ever did was straight to, I think, like a VHS. Like I literally would play my
Yeah.
camera, record the
That's
VHS tape, and then stop, and then like, yeah,
that's exactly what I did with my friends in junior high. It was and then if you messed up, you were wound,
yeah,
recorded over it.
bingo. So,
That's awesome. So in high school, you started to do these films. Did that kind of set you up for maybe the future? Like you're like, I want to go to college, or what was like that next step and thought process?
yeah, for me, the biggest part of my journey was I didn't know the difference between animation and visual effects. And I loved certain movies because they had a heavy visual effects component to it.
Yeah.
And yet I also thought, well, all that's animation, right? It's computer animation. And that's what the terminology I understood. Nobody really broke that down or explained it to me. And so I applied to animation schools. One of those is Brigham Young University, another is Cal Arts. I didn't get into Cal Arts. I did get into BYU, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this is great. They have a great animation program. So for me, I was like, I'm going to be an animator, and I'm going to go through animation. And I'd done a lot of little animation projects as well. I even made a short animated film for one of my, again, anytime in school, it was like, you can make a movie. I was like, oh, thank gosh.
Yeah, I can do
It's
it.
so much easier than writing.
Yeah.
Which it's not, but for my brain, apparently it is.
Yeah.
And so I made like an animated short, and anyway, all of that got me into college, and because my grades didn't, but the animated films and things. So I started that, and I would actually say that the biggest reason I thought I wanted to do animation was a short film that was in the Animatrix,
Yeah.
which I was the biggest Matrix fan like ever. I mean, I was in the top 1% of Matrix fans. Like I fell asleep to it every night type of thing.
Nice.
But the Matrix had a 9-part animated like series that expanded the world. One of the shorts in there was called Beyond by a filmmaker named Koji Morimoto, and the style and the look of this film was just so breathtaking to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to make something that captivating and beautiful. And so that probably pushed me in the animation direction. And it wasn't until a couple of years into school that I started doing more film work with other film students,
Yeah.
and even got an editing job with a film teacher, that I realized, oh, you like animation, but you don't want to go and produce animated films. You want to make films that have an animation component in visual effects.
Gotcha. That's cool, because what's interesting, and I think about this every time I watch an animation, it's like a blank page. When you're filming or you're, out, you have a canvas in front of you, you have light naturally, you have to add all that. And so was that, because like you obviously started with green screen with that one shoot, which is interesting to me. That's like a way hard place to start. And then you went to be an animator, but you really just want to be a visual effects guy once you figured that out. But there's so much visualization and just coming up with things. It's almost like creating a previs for your film. Is that what, like that animation process, what was it about that spoke to you the most? Like was it just these thoughts in your head that were like, I got to get them out? I just want to understand the animation versus turning into a filmmaker.
Yeah, I think there's actually something really interesting there where, and I remember you brought back a memory from early animation school where a student was like, that's animation is, out of all like the film disciplines, is one that is purely creative.
Yeah.
In that you have to create everything. You create the characters from scratch, from nothing, and so I think that there is that allure. I loved creating worlds, or whether it's a sci-fi world or a fantasy setting, and I don't think the process is very different. It's just, can I achieve this with natural elements?
Yeah.
Frankly, the reason I probably live in Utah is there are so many landscapes that lend themselves already to a fantasy or a science fiction, setting. But I think creating and starting with things. I often joke, actually. I hope I meet more filmmakers who are like this. But if you ever met someone who's like, well, like right within your limitations, just set 2 people in a room having a conversation. My brain instantly goes, great. Okay, so that room, can it be at the bottom of the ocean, or what if it's in outer space? Now, when you say 2 people, do they have to be humans? Because one of them could be a humanoid creature, could be a person in a suit, or we could CGI that.
I love that.
That's like, it's this brain where I'm just like, And it's probably just me rebelling against, I don't know what, my parents or my school, but I always wanted to create something that my brain just kind of spirals into what's the craziest way to accomplish this simplest task, which is great for me and hard for my wife. So
your mind is fascinating. That's really like just the fact that you just did that. And it's like, that's where your mind goes. And going back to the idea of like being in Utah and finding, like you have an image in your head, it sounds like, and then you go and find that. And I guess the difference between just creating it and finding it is it's not going to be exact.
Right.
And you end up embracing it. And that's one of my favorite parts of creating any film is like, you have what's in your head, this idea, you pitch it to the client or your investors, and then you actually create it. And then where it came from, your head to where it actually is like just so different. And I think it's fun because I'm always like, what's it actually going to look like when I start it? So that's probably fun for you too. And it's like, you have these crazy ideas and how close did I get to that crazy idea?
Yeah. And it's always the thing that's in your head. I've heard Edgar Wright talk about this, where it was Baby Driver was the first movie where he's like, I actually feel like what I was in my head finally got into the real world. And it came from heavily storyboarding. And then I hear someone like, Shipman Draw Blank. Maybe you'll have to edit that out. Maybe you don't edit. I don't know.
We typically don't, but we can.
Okay, well then here. We're gonna play a guessing game. The guy who was in the Mandalorian, and he's like, I want to see the baby.
I didn't watch Mandalorian. I'm sorry.
Hang on. I could do a solid impression of. I keep thinking Vin Vendors, but it's not. It's
Boston's on the board. Can we look it up?
No. What's this? Akira, the Wrath of God. Werner Herzog. There it is.
Werner Herzog.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Good pull.
Okay. So, yeah, we'll hopefully have to edit. I'm sorry.
We'll speed that up. How about that?
Okay. Anyway, but then Werner Herzog is saying he thinks that, storyboarding is the coward's way to go.
Yeah.
And I love that there's two people that I really look up to who have polarized views on whether you should plan something or whether you should improv something. Again, I started more in documentary, and that's the jazz music of film, right? And I started to move into this space of narrative, but you always find magic where you didn't expect it, and I think that's part of the process. I may have had this idea, I may have even wanted the actor to do this or say that, but on the day, something else completely different happened, and it was better. And I think that makes, Rachel, or coming back to who introduced us, but she talks about when you're on set, there's this group flow.
Yeah.
And it's like going to church, but so much cooler. But everyone is working towards this art, towards this specific project, and you're all doing your different tasks, and you're not in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Especially no producer or director is in charge of everything. And so the magic of whatever people can play together, it is, to a certain degree, it might be planned, but there's this space for complete improvisation or change.
Totally. That's my favorite part of filming anything is the collaboration of it. It's like, I have what I planned, and I'm always open to these, like, what if we did this? And it's like, that's interesting, but we don't get to that unless we have the planning. And so I'm always telling people to plan and do as much, get prepared as much as you can. And then when you're on set, be open to being flexible, but it also gives you a chance to play because you have a structure, and it's like, okay, we got that.
Yeah.
This is happening. Let's try this too. And then we'll move on.
Yeah. I've always liked to say that, there's the phrase, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But if you deliberately fail to plan to fail, you're not planning to fail to plan, right? So
I'm following. I'm like, it's like your brother's sister's cousin's wife.
Exactly. I don't know what the joke is there. But the point is, I'm just making a silly thing. But the basic idea is like being open or flexible. And I found that some of the coolest learning lessons I had, especially on Alien Country, which is the feature film we made, it came out last year, was that I had very specific plans.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I was like, I have enough time to like push that plan, it didn't make the best result. And so, that collaboration it's the magic. It's the magic of what our medium is.
Yeah, and it's such an important role in just any area of our industry. Is just that like relationship collaboration. It's the best part. So getting back to kind of you going to BYU animation, you kind of realized you want to do visual effects. Go from there. Like what happened from there?
Yeah, I jumped out of school, and around graduation, I started my own YouTube channel, which was mostly vlogging, and I was doing a lot of documentary for work. And so it was like vlogging, documentary. It wasn't really YouTube-y stuff. It was more pensive stuff that probably has an audience now. But,
Yeah.
you know, I'd gotten like 7,000 or 8,000 subscribers back in like 2010, which looking back would have been a great place to start.
Yes.
But also it still wasn't like the biggest passion for me. And I realized, yeah, I could spend a lot of time and I could try to keep up with the pace of YouTube. But ultimately I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know the pieces. I hadn't learned what it was. Social media was still growing, and how people were having success was there weren't people even teaching it because no one had figured it out.
Yeah.
And so I basically just started following whatever came, and it led into doing a bunch of like cool commercials for, you know, companies. I did a bunch of like promos for the Color Run. A couple of those like went viral, and that led to doing a lot more kind of sports work.
Cool.
So sports documentary. I worked for a supplement company here in Utah and was doing just like kind of traveling around the world, filming their sports, you know, went to Thailand, Hawaii, all these fun places. And as like a, you know, a single guy with a camera, I was like, this is the best. This is the best.
Yeah.
And so I think what was happening though along that, you know, timeline is I was recognizing when you were 11, you just wanted to make Star Wars, and you're getting better and you're starting to actually make films that don't look bad. So can you start making science fiction? Can you start making action, you know, narrative work? And that's when I launched a YouTube channel called Freaking Rad.
Cool. That sounds freaking rad.
I should probably back up 2 steps, because the reason I actually launched that channel was a huge moment in my career. So before I graduated college, I did an internship at Sony Pictures Animation, and I was in post-production. So it was kind of a cool blending, and this is where I was figuring out what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, animation, right? Sony Pictures Animation, but I was in post-production, which was the same discipline I was doing at school. You know, I had a job editing a TV show at school. And so I'm there, I'm shadowing the 2 directors on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And at the time, this is their first big studio film, but it's Chris Miller and Phil Lord. And watching them work, I just knew, I was like, these guys are brilliant, and I want to do what they're doing.
Way cool.
This is what I want to do. And I remember the last day of my internship, they had these, you could go to the gift shop and they had these shirts that said like producer, actor, star, director.
Yeah.
And I grabbed the director shirt and I put it on, and I took a picture with Chris and Phil, and it was like, it just said director on it, right? And it was really funny because everyone was like laughing, but it was like, for the first time in my life, I was unafraid to say that's what I wanted to do. And in film school, that was honestly beaten out of me. It was like, you're an editor. That's where you'll find work. That's where you'll find a job. And yes, I think there's more opportunity to find, because there's just more demand for post-production. Totally. But Chris, actually, we were crossing, we went to lunch. I was walking back with Phil Lord, and I was like, yeah, I want to do what you do, man. I don't know what to do. I got to do this. And he was like, it's funny to say this because I'm doing this studio stuff, but I'm kind of jealous of YouTubers. And I was like,
interesting. Yeah.
This is, you know, Phil Lord, he's working on a big studio film, you know, and I was like, what are you doing next? And he was like telling me early versions of 21 Jump Street. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. I don't know what that is, but okay. And he's like, yeah, it's this 80s thing. We're going to maybe reboot it as a movie. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. You know, and then his career just explodes, right?
Yeah.
But he was like, yeah, if I were you, I would go start a YouTube channel and I would just learn. And so that basically, while I'm doing all this sports stuff, while I'm doing all this, I'm like, well, what can I make right now that is a cheap, affordable version of the films I want to be making 5 to 10 years from now? And so we started making like sci-fi action comedy shorts on YouTube. The channel was called Freaking Rad. And it also, the name for that channel came because in the Cloud with a Chance of Meatballs at the opening credits, it says a film by a lot of people. And I thought that was such a cool community, you know, collaborative way for Chris and Phil to share what they're doing with the 400, 500, 1,000 people who were all working on that film. And so I was like, well, if I was making a movie, I don't want to take, you know, I don't want a Boston McConnaughey film. I was like, no, I just want the movie to be like freaking rad, you know? Like, so I was like,
there it is.
This is my juvenile sensibilities of, I'm just going to say a freaking rad film, you know? And that's actually the name of the company. And so we started that, and that spun up for like about 6 years, 40 million views, 140,000 subs. Like it was like a really fun way to just cut my teeth and learn. how to direct.
Were you in the YouTube circle, like the Devin Supertramp, the Scott Wynn, the Stuart Edge, like that era?
Yeah. So
Were you did you ever collaborate with any of them?
yeah, we totally did. I actually did a lot of work.
Is this your film?
This is it. Yeah, this is Halo versus Destiny.
This is really cool.
10,800,000 views.
Yes.
Yeah. The joke that I would say is like, okay, look, if you want to go viral, all you have to do is just take something super famous and something else super famous, big fan bases, mash them together in a fresh new way.
That was Devin Supertramp.
It's the viral
Parkour
formula.
Mario.
Yeah. It's like, I have an idea. Star Wars plus anything else that people like to watch.
Yep.
And that's what, we did. And at the same time, you still had to make a product that that was watchable, that people wanted to see. This is one of the videos I probably was more, I more enjoyed, but we, living in Utah, we found a free location, a little canyon that looked like an alien planet. And then I just met a bunch of cosplayers at Comic-Con. But yeah, I was kind of going alongside, and I watched other people have way more success than me. It was like Devin, did really well, and Scott Wynn did really well, and they were doing similar stuff. But I was trying to find my thing.
Yeah.
And I think that the big thing I wasn't was like, this is a fairly inauthentic thing for me. I think I get the jokes and the timing, but for me, what was fun about these videos was planning the shots and using the cameras and all of this. I wanted to tell a real story in the Halo universe.
Yeah.
I played Halo, I played a little bit of Destiny, but I'm such a bad video gamer that I honestly felt like I'm just, pandering a little bit. And that would happen a lot with a lot of this stuff. And we found these fan bases of people who really cared about the intellectual property, the world of Halo or the world of Star Wars or whatever it was. I mean, Star Wars actually probably am a diehard fan of, but we found these people who particularly liked the games. And I think that was hard for me because I was like, I can't connect with you over the game because I don't play it enough. And what I really want to do is make a science fiction movie. I want to make a action film or something comedic.
So that was always on the horizon for you, like heading that direction.
Yeah.
Dude, I know the YouTube hustle, and our stories are a little bit similar, where I was vlogging the hustle, the grind, the hardness, finding out if this is something you actually enjoy, or you're just doing it for the money, or you're doing it for the fame. Like, you're figuring those things out and you don't know until you kind of go down that road. What was it like for you when you were, I'm going to do a YouTube channel, and you started to just create things from scratch? And that's why we heard that a lot. I was at Devin Supertramp. We heard that anytime we went on and worked with like people that were actually in LA or in Hollywood, they would, or they're always like, man, this is so much better. You guys have full control and you're not restricted by the production house or whatever. And then we're looking at them like, wait, what? No, you're in Hollywood. Like, this is the dream. So that's cool that this guy was like saying the same thing. And I think it's always greener on the other side, right? But talk about that hustle, that grind, that mindset of like putting out content with no real return.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time too when you put something out, and I think especially like as a single guy who didn't have a lot of overhead, it was just sort of like, yeah, I could do this. Yeah, let's just spend like, I don't know, like what, $3,000?
Yeah,
that's probably what it's going to cost to make this thing, and then we'll put it out on YouTube, and we'll maybe make that back in AdSense.
Yep.
And
the heydays of AdSense. Right. Now it's not so hard.
But it was like, that didn't honestly really pan out. It was more like we would make stuff and then sponsors would come in, and that's where we started to make money back.
Yep.
But the grind there wasn't a lot of money coming. And we still had to hustle and pitch companies and say, look, we can get attention. This video has 5 million views. This video has 1 million views. We can make something like that for you. And, 9 times out of 10, if not 99 times out of 100, they're kind of like, pass.
Yeah.
We'll go talk to, I don't know, Video Copilot. Or no, we'll go talk to, a bigger YouTuber, essentially, or they'd be like, oh, do you guys know Devin? You want to introduce us? No, that never happened. But it was kind of that thing where we didn't quite have enough of an audience that we were landing big deals.
Yeah.
So we took what we could do. We'd do a video for $5,000. We'd do a video for $3,000. And it was this hustle. It was this constant grind. And all along that way, I was working freelance. I was doing commercials basically to feed the habit, which was YouTube.
Yep.
But YouTube started opening doors, and it would get us meetings in LA. We took meeting after meeting with people saying like, hey, let's do a little show that's like this or like that. And none of that turned into anything. And again, I think it's just more that the people, especially the Hollywood mentality, is like everyone wants to level up. So they're looking to work with people who are potentially doing more exciting things than they're working on, or they have the biggest audience. They want to work with the biggest talent, and rather than maybe take a risk on someone who is coming up. And I think in some ways that's really good. If I walk into the room and I'm like, yeah, I have a couple of these videos, or here's Halo versus Destiny, like yeah, don't hand me $10 million. Like maybe don't make that bet, but hand me $1 million, and I'll show you what I can do. And but I think, that's an anti-Hollywood mentality, and I think it's only gotten more and more disparate, where it's like, well, we're gonna hand the people we know, like Spielberg, well, we can give him, or Scorsese, let's keep giving them 80, 100, 300 million. But not being too disparaging on that. I just think that the reality is you really have to build something. YouTube was more of a chance for me to just make mistakes without big consequences.
Totally.
Than I think it was to make a career. And I also think that, again, the biggest struggle for me was the authenticity piece of it, which is, oh, hey, and we found some people to collaborate with. I found another YouTube channel we combined, and I was like, you guys do great visual effects. Let's just work on this together. And they had different sensibilities. So it was like kind of like trying to form a band.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, all right, I like jazz, you like rock, your ska is cool, maybe let's go, and everyone had a different idea of what the channel or the next video should be. And I don't think we jammed very well together.
Yeah.
We'd put out some stuff, but it would be fun. But again, like it wasn't, we weren't playing the same note or the same music. And so I think that became another struggle. And I think my ambition was always bigger. I was like, I'm going to make a YouTube channel that's going to make like web series after and I wanted to make stuff that was longer form narrative. And literally what I probably should have tried to do along the way was just be more of a vlogger, talk more about my process, talk about who I am, and then try to make direct connections with people one-on-one and find the people who really care about what I care about. That would have been a much healthier way to approach it. Hindsight 2020, but that's what my wife and Rennie and I are doing now.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. Like, I wish I would have done more of that process and the story along the way, because every guru out there teaches that, like, film everything, even when you're bad, and just you'll look back and that's part of the process. So obviously you're doing it now. How did YouTube shape this next chapter for you? Like, did you just go, I'm done with YouTube, or is it still a thing? And then how did that support the next step of your life?
Yeah. So the short order is I worked at this company here in Utah, sports supplement company, MLM. And I was getting lots of opportunities to just practice my craft, learn skills, find some voice, all that kind of stuff. And the environment there wasn't very healthy. Had some people I was working with, we weren't getting along. And I was like, I got to find another job. I got to do something else. But I was doing my YouTube channel on the side, and the idea was, oh, maybe if this YouTube channel just kicks off, I'll go. And it didn't really grow, wasn't really growing. This is like 2016-ish. And so I talked to a buddy. I was like, hey, I think I need a job. And he was like, well, why don't you come work with me at Google Cloud? And we just need to make like more YouTube content. And I was like, great.
Cool.
So I left Utah, spent about 1.5 years in the Bay Area working at Google Cloud. And during that time, the YouTube channel started doing better and my skills were getting better and I was learning how to do more stuff. So while I was working on these YouTube channels at Google, I would literally fly back to Utah and shoot, like, over the weekend, a video like, another Destiny or whatever kind of parody video. And then I'd fly back,
Cool.
And we started doing this thing, and that was cool for a little while. And then I kind of had to make a choice, because freelance and the YouTube channel were looking like they were going to take off. And so I was like, you know what? I'm making good money here at Google, and I could probably, it would be a great retirement. I met a guy who came and visited, Google campus, and he's like, this is a wonderful place for millennials to retire. And I was like, yeah, but there wasn't really a lot of growth there, or the content we'd make was like super cool, but it was serving internal audiences only. It's like, we just spent like $100,000 on a video for Google employees only that's never going to see the light of day. And as a person who literally learned film to connect with other people, I was like, all right, we got to shit or get off the pot. I need to go and make this YouTube channel a thing or not. And we landed a huge sponsor. They came in for about $150,000. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to quit my job. I think
Yeah.
I'm going to leave Google and go be a YouTuber. And so we went home, and there was already like tension within the YouTube group, and that contract got pushed 6 months.
No way.
And I was like,
Crap. I just quit.
they're like, sorry, our video game, we're going to our company's pivoted. We're making a different game. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I have some freelance work. And I did have some freelance work. I was doing some stuff for the Olympic channel. And they're like, yeah, we have like 9 videos we need to make. And I was like, cool, sounds good. Schedules got pushed again. I went to like Africa, I went to Canada. And then it was like, well, these athletes, they don't have a lot of time to film videos right now. So it probably isn't going to be a couple months. So I was scrambling. I was like, I just quit my job at Google, and luckily some other people that I worked with at Google had left and gone to different companies, so they were hiring me to do freelance work.
Cool.
But while this was happening, it was 2018, and we were pivoting, and it was like people were starting to do educational content, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And there was a moment where I published a YouTube sketch, and it was like a Star Wars thing, it was like a little sketch. I thought it would do well. I'm like, maybe 100,000 views or whatever, 3,000 views. And at 2018, YouTube had changed into being a search engine.
Yeah.
And we were the fallout of that situation because, yeah, our content, these sketch comedy stuff, they just were like, no, we were not really interested in promoting that right now. But then we made a behind the scenes video on how I put this like 3D X-Wing in the backyard of my, nephew's house, right?
Yeah.
And because he was like this kid in the Star Wars video. That video got 300,000 views like in a week. And it kind of peaked and plateaued, but what I didn't recognize, because I didn't even pay attention to that, I didn't even look at that video, like that count, until like probably 3 months later. And I was like, wait a minute, that video? Yeah, and what I realized was, yeah, there's a community for people who want to learn these things online.
Yeah.
And so in the middle of all of that, I was like, well, should I make a school teaching editing, visual effects? What should I do? And the freelance work was taking up enough of my time that I probably couldn't do both. I just needed the money to come in. And so essentially I just stopped working on the YouTube channel and ran out of steam, on that. So while that was happening, my wife and I are like, what are we doing? I worked on a documentary, I worked on some freelance work. I was doing regular videos for some, great companies, in Silicon Valley too. So it was like California rates, Utah cost of living, pretty good stuff. We had a year, we brought in like 300K the next year, and I was like, this is awesome, but is it?
Yeah.
And I was like, what are, you're making I would joke, I'm making sexy tech videos.
Yeah.
Like I'm selling corporate enterprise solutions to C-suite, which only makes sense if you like know that world.
Yeah.
And I was like,
no, I know what you're saying.
And then I was 11 years old. I wanted to make Star Wars. And so I was like, well, what should we do? We met this kid, Charan Prabhakar. If you haven't had him on the show, you should get him on the show. He's a really fun guy.
Is he a local? He's around here?
Yeah, local guy, producer, actor. He's been in dozens of movies, but just an incredible networker and just incredible breath of fresh air. And we met him at an agency party. My wife's in one of the biggest agency here in Utah, but we were at her, year-end party, and Charan's part of also an actor at the same agency. And so we're chatting, and we had seen him in our friends' YouTube videos, and we're just like, oh, hey, and we were, talking with him, and we hung out for a couple of days, just like whatever. And he was like, man, I've seen your stuff for years on YouTube. You got to make a movie, man. And I was like, he's like, I'll send you my script. And I was like, cool, I'll send you a script I've been working on for 10 years.
Yeah.
And he reads it and he goes, dude, like we have to make this movie. And strangely enough, that validation from somebody who wasn't, in the trenches with me every day, which is my wife, who is the biggest champion of everything in my life, having this third party come in and go, you guys have written something here that is really solid. I literally had to put the script down because I was laughing, but you need to make this movie. And that was Alien Country. And we're like, all right, let's fucking make a feature film.
Yeah, crazy, dude. That is so intimidating to me to even consider that, and the fact that you guys actually accomplished it is amazing. I do want to ask you about Rennie.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating when couples are able to kind of be in the same industry. My wife would, she would divorce me if she worked with me because I've got that like go, like kind of director mentality. And She doesn't like when I tell her what to do.
Fair.
So I'm curious, when did you meet Rennie, and also was she already in this industry? And then how did you guys develop that into what you are now, which is a partnership in film, right?
Yeah. So my wife and I met on a film set. It was probably a year or so after college for me. It was actually within the year that I graduated. So she was playing a part in this just absolutely gem of a film. But it was a ultra basically no budget feature.
Yeah.
Romantic comedy. But they had like 12 grand total to make a feature. And they're like, we're just going to go do it. We made it. We did a 48-hour film. This is literally what my good friends who were producing this film were like, we got a team together. We did a 48-hour film festival. And we're like, well, why don't we just do this like 10 times back to back? And we've got ourselves a feature film. And I was like, in theory, sure. So they're like, we're going to give ourselves a month to make a movie. Anyway. I get what, yeah. Any feedback? Any feedback on that?
Yeah, no, there's, you need times maybe 10, maybe 6.
Yeah. But you know what? I think that craziness, that ambition of just like, no, I'm just going to go do it. That's if you could bottle that up and put that into a drink and sell this like crazy, risk taker ambition, it would change the film world. But it's going to change every industry. But yeah, they were just like, we're going to make a movie. So they put this thing together. And at the time, I was editing or doing some freelance, right after school. And so I was like, sure, I'll hop on. And do you guys need any help? And they're like, I don't know. I think most of the roles are fulfilled. And I was like, great. Do you have a DIT? Which is basically grab the hard drive, put it in the computer, offload the footage, back it up, yada, yada. And so I show up day one and, I'm just sitting in the back room and waiting for the hard drive. Lunch happens. I'm like, cool, I'll grab the hard drive. They're like, you know what? Let's just offload at the end of the day. I was like, no, just hand it to me. That's fine. They're like, we've only gotten 3 takes of the first shot.
Oh my gosh. And you're like, what?
I was like, we've been here 6 hours. We've been here 6 hours.
Yeah.
Time out. You mean the first shot? And they're like, yeah, we just started. I'm like, it took you 5.5 hours to light? Like, what's going on? And they're like, well, yeah. And I was like, where's the AD? Where's the assistant director? And they're like, oh yeah, they quit. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I was like, script. I haven't read the script. Let me see the script. And I'm like, okay, so we got to get through 7 pages today. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be the AD for the rest of the day. Does that sound good? Okay, everybody on board? Great. And started going.
Nice.
And so literally the shoot was like, I would read the pages we had for the next day that night and then like show up and be like, what's the plan? Okay, we're making it up. And I kind of was, helping move things along. And believe it or not, 12-day shoot. We got through like whatever 90 something pages.
No way. So you actually pulled it off.
And with the caveat that, of course, on the last day of the shoot, the director's wife went into labor. So I ended up directing.
Nice.
Which was really exciting for me. I was like really proud of some of the stuff I pulled off. And tonally, I did something completely different than what the director did for the rest of the film. But obviously the film turned out so well. However, out of that, in the middle of week 1, there was this gorgeous girl who was on set, and I fell in love. I saw her on the side of the road as I was like pulling up, and was like, "Is she on set today?" Nice.
I will be there.
So got ready, and
Yep.
And no, but I met Rennie Grames, right, and ultimately the love of my life, right, and she was in the film industry already, so I had that going for me, so she could put up with that.
She gets it. Yeah.
But yeah, we started dating, and we were both hungry and just wanted to explore and experiment. She wanted to be in films. I wanted to make films. I needed someone to film. One of the hardest problems is getting actors for free.
Yep.
No.
So you married one, and
so I married one so that we could just, I could save that line item of the above the line, But ultimately we started producing together. We did commercials, competitions, and everything I just described up until this point, whether it was the YouTube channel or it was this, freelance work, she was right there along, either being in it or producing it or writing it together with me. And ultimately, we wrote Alien Country together. I wrote the first draft in 2014, dusted it off the shelf when we met Sharon in 2018, and then I think probably 2019, really, Rennie and I had rewritten it from the ground up to be basically what it is now, which was, originally it was called Shotgun Jimmy, which was all about a guy trying to prove himself to a girl, and then bringing in her perspective, it turned into this really solid story about a couple dealing with an unplanned pregnancy. But luckily aliens invade their town.
Yeah, luckily. That's so fun. What's that dynamic like between you and Rennie? Like, is it a good, flowy, like, or is there a lot of conflict that you guys battle through?
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating when couples can do this together.
How do you do it? I think that ultimately, I think Rennie has really good sensibilities and taste, and I'll have a great idea, right? And she can just rein in where she's like, well, where's that going to go?
Yeah.
What's this going to lead to? Is that going towards the North Star of what we want to accomplish? She's always able to kind of figure out, because ideas keep coming to me, or, I feel like that's creative spark is something that I have, that I, deal with. It's both a blessing and a curse, where you can come up with a new idea every day for a new thing that you want to make or whatever. But really, she has this ability to say, well, that's solid. Let's work on it. Let's develop it. And then I think ultimately we're both just so hardworking. We don't stop. And I mean, we've gone through the shit. Like, it is not easy, and it's not getting easier necessarily. It is and it isn't. I think technology and things get equally easier as it gets competitive.
Yep.
And so I think, having a support system is the most important thing I've learned.
Yep.
If you're trying to go about this by yourself, you can't. The medium requires collaboration, but your life, your human nature requires absolute, support. And that's friends, that's loved ones, that's family. With me, it was my spouse, and we're in the trenches together. And that works for us.
Yeah.
And others, and there's back and forth too, where sometimes I'm like, I think we really should do this crazy thing. And when I rope her into an idea, because she is, very calculated, deliberate, I know if she does something, I'm like, oh, it gives me this confidence. This must be a good one. This must be a good one.
Cool.
So that works for us. And, but it's not always, it's not always a walk in the park.
Of course, it's hard. I've married 11 years, man. I know about those days, but basically
11 years. Yeah.
Is that the same with you?
Yeah. That's our wedding anniversary is in a few days.
Nice. Ours was in May.
Okay.
Look at us. Yeah. So that kind of brings us to Alien Country, and I didn't know you had written it for that long, like legitimately. And it started as something else, developed into this. It's kind of like your life's work.
Sure.
Like this is like probably what you're most proud of at this point.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah, with the exception, of course, like my daughter, which I'm probably more proud of than my movie, but
I would hope so. And when she's listening to this one day, how old is she?
3.
Okay, so she probably won't listen to it yet, but she'll appreciate that. So talk about Alien Country, and let's go from, because you said 2018 is when I forget his name told you got to make this.
Yeah. So Sharon Prabhakar ran into us at this agency party, and it's like, we should make this movie, Shotgun Jimmy.
Yeah.
And it must have been 2019, because we decided, okay, let's do a final pass at the script. Let's go shoot it this fall. Let's be ambitious. What do we need? Like $100,000? Let's do it. And so we did a table read, and we like booked out this barn, and we were like, got people in, got some people who were like maybe investors and all this kind of thing, do the whole thing, the song and dance, and set the atmosphere, play some, music. And as we were reading, like, it was supposed to be a comedy, and it was getting some chuckles, but it wasn't getting like the laughter.
Yeah.
And Rennie and I realized, I don't think it's ready. I don't think the script's ready. Again, I wrote a rough draft of the film in 2014, but it really sat on a shelf for a long time. It wasn't until 2018, 2019 that we were reworking it. And we decided, we have to go make this thing. But it got colder and colder, and we weren't going to shoot it. By the time the leaves were all off the trees in November of 2019, we're like, we missed our window to make our summer blockbuster.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, well, you know what? Let's, we're at Sundance in January, just attending, watching festivals, seeing other filmmakers stand on the stage, and be like, oh yeah, I did it. I just, risked it all and went for it. And Rennie and I looked at each other, and we basically said to one another, come hell or high water, let's make our feature this year. I don't want to attend Sundance having never made a movie again.
Yeah.
And that was just because it's such an incredible environment to be around these creative, collaborative filmmakers, right? And so, yeah, we were like, hell or high water, let's make a movie. And again, that was February of 2020. So hell then
1
hit.
month later.
And it was like COVID-19, everything shut down. Great time to do development. So we were reworking the script. Our good friend Sergio Paez, who had worked at Lucasfilm for a number of years, worked on these Star Wars animated shows, directed. He was like, just volunteered his time. He's like, let's script doctor your film. Let's get this thing to a place where it can be, super solid. And so we reworked this thing. And all along the way, we were like making how-to videos, making this huge writing course for indie film school. And so we worked through the entire script, and we started pitching investors. We were just like, hey, we can make this thing for, 300 grand, or whatever. And we did a lot of the research of like what categories we were trying to hit. Do we need to get an A-lister? Can we afford an A-lister? Are A-listers going to show up in Utah during COVID? No. Okay. It was like we were trying to make this thing work. And eventually we just said, we're making it. No matter what happens, we're making this film.
Yeah.
And we got together about a little over $300,000, and that was an extremely tight budget, and that got us through basically 75% of production. And we filmed starting at the very end of September 2020, and we deliberately wrote the script though that we could still find maybe a big name cast to come in, and we had 25% of the film to make, but we were planning on filming that a year later.
Got it.
So and there were a lot of them were flashback scenes or things that required other locations or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and the final big battle. So we basically just pushed through, and it was in 2021 that we finished principal photography, and we had to raise a little bit more money for that. I think it was another $90,000 to do our principal photography. It's cool to talk about all these numbers now because the film sold. There's nobody else going to make us this big offer for the film at this point in the game. But those numbers are the hard numbers of just things we had to pay for.
Yeah.
Cast, crew, all the, physical equipment, labor, whatever it would be to just get the pieces together. No budget for editing, no budget for my time, no budget for Rennie's time, and so much of that money that we're talking about was money that we came up with. It was our personal money that we put into it, having worked clients or done something else. So it was a huge risk for us. But we just freaking went.
Yeah.
We didn't stop.
Why did you do this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of it was, there was this idea like, look, these things are profitable.
Yeah.
If you can make a science fiction movie $400,000 or less, there is a market.
Yeah.
And that was, we'd heard that for probably 5 years.
Okay.
And so it was like, but you have to hit this bar of quality. It has to have this pacing. It has to do all these things, right? So there was this idea that's like, this is going to be a launching pad for our career, which is long form narrative directing.
Yep.
And writing, producing, right? So this is what we're going to do. And for Rennie, it was like, yes, I want to go and I want to be the star in a film with a role that I actually love.
Yeah.
That's really, that has heart and it has soul, but also like features everything that I can do, from action to to truly intense dramatic beats. So I felt like it was kind of this dream project, but it's really there to launch our career.
Right.
And I think that was our main why, is this is going to work. This is going to be financially lucrative, and it's going to launch our career. And we would also say along the road, it's like, look, if this isn't a launching pad, it will be a stepping stone.
Totally.
And it will get us to the next project. And so that's what kept us going. The thing that got away from us was, as we were showing it, a lot of people were like, look, you need more monsters, or you need more effects. And we showed it to a few, people who had done a stint in Hollywood, even at the executive level. And they would kind of go, yeah, I mean, you need the ending battle. We need more guts. We need more this. We need more that. And I took that to heart, because I was like, all right, these guys are going to help me sell my film. I'm gonna put this stuff in. When we do these reshoots in 2021, let's add a huge epic battle sequence that was, way bigger than what I anticipated. Also way more expensive.
Yeah.
I was like, well, we'll raise more money. It'll be great. And so, that the story and the thing just started ballooning, started getting bigger. Still pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Like, it's indie film, but what I will say to the end of the day is, as a filmmaker, film is expensive. And as an indie filmmaker, you're either going to spend money or you're going to spend time. And I've heard this story now, as we did our festival circuit with Alien Country, the same story from other people. They're like, yeah, I had like 400 visual effects shots, and it was me in a room for a year. And I'm like, hi, I'm Boston.
Yeah.
You're my best friend.
I know all about that.
I'm glad to meet you. And there's people doing that right now.
Yeah. the process of, you said a lot of the money came from you guys.
Yeah.
And I did want to touch on that whole, just, it's kind of where what people can shoot things with no budget and just use their time, right? But to really get something that I think is to that caliber, you've got to have some cash behind it. Yeah. You've got to be able to hire people, the right people. You got to pay your actors and talent. Let's talk about just the money side of it, the business side of it, and taking that risk, hoping that something will pay off eventually. But talk about those conversations you're having with people. Any beside, not the money you guys brought into it, but the other money you brought into the film, like, how do you do that for someone that wants to start a film that they've written?
Yeah, I think that everyone's journey and how they're going to be able to fundraise is going to be different.
Yeah.
And I think what we talk about a lot at indie film school as well is kind of know thyself, but like know who you are. Funny, know thyself maybe sounds like a spiritual thing. I think that's what the Oracle says in the Matrix. But
you are a fan.
but it's this idea of, okay, how much have I done? Mm. And I've taken meetings with Hollywood executives, and I'm like, yeah, I made this YouTube video, and they're like, cool.
Anything
what else
else?
You got? Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, okay. I see. You're comparing me to Christopher Nolan, right? You talked to him an hour ago.
Yeah.
Copy. I'm gonna go. So like you have to know how much have I gotten done, and what am I really capable of doing. And there's the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is just like at the beginning of your career, you think you can do anything, and then you realize you can't do anything, and then you spend like years doing this, where it's like you actually start to get the skills and start to get better, but you also have this self-perception that you are terrible, or not capable of doing something. And then eventually you think everyone can do what I do, but then you look back and you say, oh, most people have given up.
Yeah.
So there's a creative journey in 15 seconds. But I think I was in this position where it's like, I haven't made anything that I'm truly proud of.
Yep.
So what's my category? 5 years ago, that was 400,000 or less, according to everyone I talked to. Right now, it's not. Right now, it's less than 100,000. Sucks. There is no middle class of making anymore. Yeah, if you want to distribute a film and you want to make your first film, unless you can get a large A-lister in your film, you need to make something less than $100,000. That has to be returned, right? I think that's why I'm a huge fan of crowdfunding right now. I'm like, can you raise as much money as possible, whether it's 50 grand or 250 or $500,000 for crowdfunding? If you can do that, that is how you make your film, because you're not going to make 500,000 back unless you have something that you can't control, right? Or a big A-lister in your film. You can't attract that A-list talent unless you already have something that demonstrates you're a world-class creator and a world-class filmmaker. That could be a short film. It could be the most incredible short film that ever existed. If you have that, great. Go as far as you can with that. But again, it's still short film, and like the CAAs, the WMEs of the world will be like, a short film director is going to direct his first film with our guy? No.
Yeah.
They want to see that long form narrative. They want to see the experience. They have these check boxes, and they're there to gatekeep for very real reasons.
Right.
So we spent this time trying to find that A-lister or that talent who wanted to be in our film. We couldn't find them, and we said, fine, let's go. But we also heard that's not going to sell your movie. If you just make it cheap enough, it'll make its money back. So again, it's that 400,000 or less 5 years ago is now 100,000 or less.
Yeah. Is that just because of the competition, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's really the way that streaming services basically stalemated, and the surplus after COVID and everything crashed.
Yeah.
And so you're just not seeing this middle class of filmmaking. Nobody wants to take a risk on something, but however, there's a longer burn with what's called the AVOD market, advertised video on demand, Peacocks. It's all these watch ads while you play platforms,
right.
Tubi. Those are your revenue stream. Literally, YouTube is that, right?
Yeah.
Where you play a YouTube video, you get AdSense, but those ads, they do add up. And so rather than maybe making $500K on a streaming deal, you can spend 5 to 10 years and you'll make $500,000. It's just going to take you that much longer with that ad model. So I don't know if I'm giving you this too much information too fast, but
this is a really informative segment. This is really fun.
Yeah,
so keep going.
I know, and this is like it's this thing that I think everyone has to figure out is, okay, so how do I make a movie for no money? And that is what I like to call pure film alchemy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're something out of nothing.
Yep.
So you have to learn these skills. You have to understand how to do it and what the most important things are, and then how to give somebody something they've never seen before.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm at this point where it's like, can you come up with a script idea that just the concept is like, ooh, you know, it gives people those tingles, you know? So, I mean, to like pitch one that's easy is like, you know, I've had this idea for years. Go ahead and steal it if you want, but my film will be better if I ever make it. Is like, I want to tell a ghost story from in a haunted car, you know, and it's like, that's okay, cool. Right. There's a simple enough idea. Now, the version I'll make of that is a million different versions. I'm sure it's maybe been done before, but it's like, that's enough of an idea that you don't need a name in that film to potentially sell it. And if you hit this horror genre in the right ways, you deliver on what audiences expect from that film, yeah, you'll do well. If you can make that for $100,000, awesome. That's super great. Go for it. You know, and the other side of that though is, you know, ghosts don't sell well in the Middle East or any religious countries, so you got to consider that. But ignoring that side of the thing, which is literally what I go through, is
those are things people don't consider.
Yeah, and so there is that category, but when I talked about earlier was Alien Country a stepping stone or a launch pad, we built an incredible relationship with our distribution company, which is S&R Films. They do an incredible job, especially for indies and indies in our category. And basically now we're in this position to say, we've done a feature. It's really good. We're proud of it. And audiences love it. We're ready to do the next thing. And that's when we can actually approach, you know, that next tier. But I think I wanted to skip that first step, and I probably made a film that was bigger than what I maybe should have. But at the same time, whatever. You only live once.
Well, and it's like your point about you could steal this idea, but it's like the harder things get, the more people don't do it.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you actually went off and did a feature film is insane. I think a lot of people will look for that. It's like, oh, he's got the ambition and the drive to actually push something through. It's pretty rare these days, I think. I want to talk, do you have like a story? Mm-hmm. We're big on stories here because it's just like, I think that's the most fun part of anything. I think there's a lot of learning inside stories. Yeah. As the director and were you the director of Alien Country?
Yeah. I wrote and directed Alien Country.
And were you a producer, executive producer? Like, did you have any other roles?
Yeah, you get to be the film president. You get to be. I could have taken an executive producer credit. You get all the credits, and I'm almost like, I don't want to like the credits to roll in and be like, produced by Boston, written by Boston, directed by Boston,
just a freaking rad film,
edited by Boston. You know, it was, but those were the things that I edited the film. I had an assistant editor for a couple months as well, but it was like, you know, and then literally I credited my company as one of the visual effects companies, and it's just like it was me and 4 other people in the end who worked on like those, you know, that part of the visual effects, and but yeah, a lot of roles.
So a story was as a director, in this, maybe a challenge that you overcame, or like maybe your most fun part of it. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I think you know, there are a dozen different directions of such cool things. You know, there's this: how do you make something look like $1 million when we spent $3,000 on this demolition derby? Literally, you know, all of these drone shots and everything, all of that came from, in 2019, we showed up at a live demolition derby. We were getting promo footage because I wanted to capture that unique motorsport that I had seen and never seen in a film. And I was like, let's do that for the first time.
So cool.
And put it into a feature, put it into a narrative film. And there've been documentaries and things, but I was like, let's go make a movie that features demolition derbies. And so we showed up, we paid like drone operators and everything, total budget $3,000, and captured all this footage. I had my wife, who was going to be the lead actress, and my buddy, who was going to be one of the villains. They showed up and played their character, and we got these incredible shots, you know, of that scene. And we didn't finish filming that scene until about 2 years later.
No way.
So it's this big demolition derby. All of the crowd shots were in 2019. In 2020, no demolition derbies.
Of course.
And so, you know, COVID shut everything down, but we shot at the fairgrounds with our main actors. And this is like the big thing that I've actually am decoding. And if our internet comes back online, we'll do a live stream about tonight. but it's this idea of, how do you make something look like $1 million when you have $3,000?
Yeah.
And so we had the stadium shots, and I call those the banger shots. right? And there's a little acronym I made up, and it's BAMS, BAMS. You got to get your banger. You got to get that jaw-dropping visual that people are like, what? The crowd, holy crap.
That was a huge budget.
Yeah, and then a year later, I got the money shot, right? So it's your bangers, your atmosphere. The atmosphere could be anything. It could be, these little shots of, him shifting the gear, or it could be like, a shot to the crowd. All of that's just to build and to cement you in that world. And then it's your money shot. Now the money shot, ironically, it's not the banger. It's not the audience. It's the performance. Because that's your story. That's everything. It's the actor. And frankly, that costs more money than going out and getting second unit photography, which is your areas. So it's like the money shot, and you've got to spend, and you've got to pull that performance from somebody brilliant like Casey Clyde or Rennie Grange, or even Sharon Prabhakar, But that's the money, and then the last little piece of that is your story. So anything else that you need to do with your actors that helps flesh out that scene. I think that's the biggest challenge, and the thing I want to give to every filmmaker out there is focus on, if you only get one of them, it's your money shot. You're going to focus on one actor, one shot, one location, one room, whatever it needs to be. You get that. And then you build out from there, and it's just as hard as you want to grind for as long as you can.
Yeah.
And then add to that, add your story shots, add that atmosphere, add those banger shots, and you'll end up with something that will turn heads. And nothing has turned more heads than this trailer, to be honest.
Yeah, it's great.
Like putting this up there, it got us meetings and distributors and all the things, but it's a labor of love, but it's also a labor of, absolute self-abuse.
I'm sure. And the scenes, the setups, who ended up DPing this?
Wes Johnson.
Okay.
And I'll work with him the rest of my life. He's incredible.
It looks so good.
Yeah.
How did this film do, and is doing still? I guess where did this end up?
Yeah, there's a couple things. So we crushed it for a very, very short window. We had our festival run. So we got a distributor before we started really submitting to festivals.
Yeah.
And we wanted to do the festival run in 2024 because we knew we were going to release in 2024.
Right.
So that was kind of a miscalculation. If I could go back and do one thing differently, we probably would have just started a festival run in 23. But we didn't really have a calculation for this. We didn't know what the distribution market was going to be like. So we released at Flickers, which is a Rhode Island International Film Festival, huge Oscar-nominated film festival, been around 40 years, amazing premiere. I was close enough to my hometown in Massachusetts that a bunch of high school friends came out.
Cool.
The same people I made little Star Wars fan films, they're all showing
awesome.
up. And it just meant the world to me to do that. And then we, within a short order, we did a theatrical, brief theatrical here in the States, and did an LA premiere, a Utah premiere, LA premiere. We played at another horror festival, and then we went to Italy for the Trieste Film Festival, and then to London for Fright Fest.
Cool.
So, and by that point it was released, and that was our festival, and it was really like 4 festivals. But audiences loved it. Even Italians laughed, not at the wordplay jokes, but at the physical comedy.
Yeah.
It was really well. A couple of the wordplay actually did translate. But yeah, so we had an amazing little travel around the world, came back, and it was instantly, being sold. Again, it was released in the States. You could buy it on TVOD, which is, transactional video on demand, Apple, Amazon,
Cool.
All those places, Google Play, blah, blah, blah. And then it started doing really, really well. So we cleared the check on a lot of the, early TVOD sales, for, a big part of our marketing budget, blah, 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 got paid back. And then we got picked up by international territories. We kind of had done that already. We had, played in Russia. We played in a lot of places, Taiwan and Australia and UK. And, in fact, we were with Vertical, which is a big company. They picked us up in the UK. So the film just started selling. And then the real market, though, and this is the thing we learned, and this is where the market shift happened literally while we're selling. Streamers are not a thing for this category. They want 6 million or more film. That's a general number, but pretty close is, they want the big name cast because they're trying to pull in more subscribers or keep subscribers on.
Right.
And it's like Faces will do that. A-listers will do that. So no streaming deal for this film, at least not a significant one at this point, but when I say significant, mid 6 figures, 300,000, 500,000, which is what we were expecting to happen, 7 or 8 years ago when we were first concepting this film. So, but we've launched on AVODs, or we are launching on AVODs. We've done some dry testing because we were YouTubers, and this is the coolest thing. we built this, and this was what we wanted to do with YouTube sensibilities. I want jokes. I wanted the pacing to be so tight. And that has proven to be the best choice we made. And it would be my biggest advice to anyone is you're living in this world where people stumble upon your film.
Yeah.
They're willing to watch it. They're open to it, but they're not coming to your film because they're like, oh, I really need to look up that Alien movie that I heard about on Tyson's amazing podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just
blushing.
Shout out to you guys. There's a few of you out there, but the rest of people are the vast majority, 99.9% of people are going to stumble on your film because they're already subscribed to a free platform like Pluto, Pluto's dead, Tubi.
Yeah.
But like they're there, and then they're giving something a chance, but you need to captivate.
Yeah.
And so our film is like, it's holding attention because we designed it that way. And so as far as how's it doing, we're finding people, and people are finding me, and they're like, I watched your movie. It's cool. It is doing that thing, and it's been a slower burn than we absolutely wanted it to be. But as it hits these markets, I'm curious to see if that is a big shift, not just financially, but big shift just for whatever future projects come next.
It's so cool, man. It's just it blows my mind to see you take something and really push it for that long and get it out there and seeing success. And like you said, stepping stone, launchpad, whatever it is, it's a significant part of your journey. And I'm stoked to see like what's coming in the next film. I'm sure you guys are even writing or concepting that, which leads me to the last question, which is where do you see yourself going in the next 5 to 10 years with all this?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things I think every filmmaker needs to do right now. I think there's and I'm reading the tea leaves a little bit on this, but not really. You need to build an audience. You need to find your people. And it's more important to me that I make real, genuine connections. And now that I'm making content that I actually truly am proud of, like Alien Country, like our indie film school courses and things, this is stuff that I really care about, that if it resonates with you, we are friends.
Yep.
And so I think that's the first step is find your people, build your audience. It is your responsibility now. And it's actually, if you want to be doing stuff in the big leagues, they want to know, can this person reach an audience?
Totally.
Probably the most important skill you could learn.
It's your currency nowadays.
Yes.
Your audience.
100%. It's everything. So if you can learn how to reach an audience, you're good. At least, if you can grind.
Yes.
And then the other piece, where do we want to go, or, what's next is I absolutely want to keep making long form content.
Cool.
There really isn't a bottom to this thing. And I also think about, yes, age spans are getting longer. Directors are working longer in the industry. I mean, we got Ridley Scott. He's 84, 85, 86, crushing it, making amazing films. But, at a certain point, these octogenarians are not going to be the ones directing.
Yeah.
It's going to be the people in their 70s. And then eventually I'll be in my 50s, and we'll kind of have this intersection, and we'll make that amazing movie.
Yes, and that'll be it.
But being a little bit more serious, I just think that film is a war of attrition. Again, actually, that guy I mentioned way back, David Wardle, he told me this after I got my distributor and I met him at FilmQuest a year and change, 2 years ago. He was like, just keep going, make another movie. That's where we're at. I think the difference now is we don't just have one script. It's like, here are 4 scripts we're actively working on, and we find the right one for the right person. And we connect, we shop, we pitch, we work. And, I think that's still a bit of a grind, because until there's enough of momentum, that snowball's been pushed far enough down the hill that it's just rolling on its own. I think that's a labor of love. But to say what's next, my North Star, I'm going to say something that I like, I don't know if I should say this, but no,
Please.
I'm not afraid to say it. Brandon Sanderson wrote this series called Skyward. I've read it over 10 times. I'm lighting up. I'm just so excited to talk about this. I love the characters. I love the world. I love the story. I want to be the director who has built enough of a library and proof that I can deliver, that I could create that show or that film series.
Cool.
I've literally never said this anywhere else. And I want the world to know that. And I also want NBC Universal, who owns the rights in perpetuity, to know that I am the person who will build his career to make this project in whatever way, shape, form that comes. Willow is an incredible story. It is what George Lucas did because he couldn't get The Hobbit.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, you've got, Peter Jackson, who did do The Hobbit, and he did it because he loved it. And so I think for me, just being able to work and develop a career that I can produce and create content on that caliber that is ILM grade, it is Star Wars, and with all the weight that Star Wars has become, and we talk about season 2 of Andor and just how incredible the depth of this world has become, somebody who can create that level with a crazy IP that like this guy who lives down the street from us that I've met multiple times has made, that's where I want to go. So building up these 4 projects I'm talking about, they're to demonstrate capacity,
Cool.
and to go that direction.
Well, your goals are very specific, and you're extremely hardworking, very ambitious. So what's exciting to me about this is like we've kind of concreted your journey up to this point, and then what's to come. Especially when you put it out there like that, it's like you're putting it out to the universe, man. It's very specific, and I hope it happens.
Thanks for being the platform to allow me to say that out loud.
Dude, this is gonna go nuts. Everyone, they're like calling you, and that's the goal. That's the goal. Dude, this has been so inspiring, and just like it like motivates me to like get out there and just create. And I hope that does the same thing for everyone listening. The last thing we do on these is are you ready for this? The last guest asks a question to you.
Yeah.
And you answer that question. And then what's funny about this is your wife's in here.
Yeah.
You ask a question to the next guest, and they don't know who's asking it when they're. But we'll play with that one on this. So you get to ask your wife a question about.
Okay. Not realizing that it would be asking her. I have the one that I hate getting asked, so I'm just gonna ask it.
Okay.
What was your biggest regret in making your most recent project?
That's hilarious. So let's pull up the question from the last guest.
Okay.
So this is a young buck. Let me give you a little intro. So
Okay.
This is Bryce. He lives in St. George, and he's 24?
Yeah.
And he's just on the grind, man. He's just making a lot of films. So we haven't hooked up to the speaker, right? Okay. We'll do that next time.
Okay.
So that we can actually, because the audience can't really hear it, so I'll repeat it.
Do you hire, partner with, or independent contract your first time working or something like?
So basically,
Do you hire,
partner, or independently contract someone that you're working with for the first time, like when you're doing something, whether it's a film or a business?
Yeah. Great that he's 24. I hope he hears this answer. Prototype and iterate. The one thing I did doing a brief stint at Google was listen to a lot of people who would talk about, people can have a big idea, you can have a big vision, but if you really want to get there, you start small.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there have been plenty of partnerships or things I've started where we just jumped off too soon, too quickly, too big. So if it's your first, time working with someone, if this is about the person you're working with, how much do you want to get involved? It's just like starting any other relationship. You don't just say, all right, cool, let's get to the chapel and get married. It's like, yeah, let's go out and grab drinks. Let's just let's try a small project. Let's prototype that.
Yep.
Let's try again. Let's grow. Let's figure out the next thing. And if it works well, great. If it doesn't, let's talk about it if we want to talk about it.
Yeah.
If it goes so bad that we don't even want to talk again, well, great, especially if you're not partnered or you haven't, hired them on. And I've seen people, not in my case, make a hire and within a week go, oh no.
Yeah.
And, that's tragic for them, funny for me to watch. So.
Entertainment. It's like, you said it's dating. It's, you put them through the seasons. Money changes people.
Yeah.
So 100% you should be vetting them. They should be vetting you. Find out if it's a good fit for not just you, but them. So I think that advice is perfect. Will you ask your question one more time?
Yeah.
Just to top this off, and then
So then
Rennie will close your ear.
My question for you is, what is your biggest regret on your most recent project?
I'm excited to hear this one.
And
Well-
I say that that was the question before I really connected who the next person was going to be.
Is he setting you up? Okay, let's go.
Thank goodness.
Well, this is your guest, Boston McConnaughey. Thank you for being on A Filmmaker's Journey, man.
Thank you.